Hey everybody, welcome into the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. I am Austin Ward, that's Spencer Holbrook, that's Jeremy Birmingham. This is Rapid Reaction brought to you by Buyers Auto, a special National Signing Day edition. It used to be Berm's favorite holiday.
It used to be so much fun today, and now it is as anticlimactic as like March 13th. I mean, it's just pointless.
I don't think they even have a fax machine anymore.
They don't have a fax machine, number one. There was no, I mean, there's energy in the building today because of
Kerry Combs is here.
What we were doing here, but it certainly is not what it used to be. The December early signing period sucks kind of all the life out of what used to be one of my favorite sports days of the year, and you know, there was one signee.
There wasn't even any drama with that because you've been talking to Cam Martinez literally since he was a freshman, and you had your finger on the pulse of that recruitment and how it was going to end, and you wrote the story last week that he was going to sign, and he did sign. So we know everybody else. They're already in the class. 14 early enrollees were on that field right over there. We talked to them. There's going to be a ton of that content. We can break down some of what we heard on this show, and we will. But we'll have a lot of stories. Spencer and Jeremy and I. Why am I calling you Jeremy today? I don't know. It's really weird.
I don't know, Mr. Ward.
Very formal today. But we're going to get to all of that. But there was a lot. You know, Cam Martinez had the spotlight today, Spencer. And from your perspective, what you heard from Ryan Day and Kerry Combs, like he's going to get a chance to play on offense when he gets here.
Maybe they can say that now, but I think once Kerry Combs gets his hands on him, it's going to be a concerted effort to get him acclimated with defense, get him to play outside corner, because Kerry said everyone who comes into the building is going to play outside corner, and then they'll work their way inside from there, and maybe you'll play safety, maybe you'll play slot. But I think he has some big plans for Cam, and I think that's going to be a fight that Kerry's going to win. I think he's going to win that, and he'll have Cam in the room with them rather than on offense. But I mean, if a guy can help on both sides of the ball, well, I don't see why not.
Mr. Birmingham, when you look at Martinez, like I don't think that this is lip service, and maybe they'll get, and part of it is he's not going to be here for 6 months.
Right.
And, you know, you hate to pressure these guys to enroll early, and if it doesn't happen, but that puts you a little bit behind the 8 ball if you don't show up till June, July in training camp, and then to learn 2 positions. That probably tells you it's going to be difficult to find a role for Cam early.
It's a developmental year for him coming up, and he knows that. That's sort of, you know, one of the things about him choosing Ohio State as opposed to Northwestern or somewhere like that where he knew that he would be playing offense exclusively, is that he wants to do whatever it's going to take to get him to the next level. Ryan Day is not just offering up lip service. The idea is let him see where he fits, okay? But the reality of the situation, and we saw 4 early enrollee wide receivers here today that are 4 of the top 10 wide receivers in the country. As dynamic as Cam Martinez is on offense, he still never played wide receiver, so he'd have to learn that position too. It's not he's played quarterback for the last 4 years in a wing T set. Okay, he is more suited for running back because of his skill set, but he's not going to be a running back. He did tell me months ago that he asked Ryan Day, I could play running back, and he was told thanks but no thanks. And I know it was mentioned today in Day's press conference, but that's not where his future is. His future is going to be as a guy who can help the Buckeyes with the ball in his hand as a punt and kick returner, potentially in that H wide receiver role that I think he would have to fight with Mookie Cooper to really win that spot, and then potentially C.J. Saunders this coming year, and that's something we can talk about still as well. The path of least resistance to the field for Cam Martinez is going to be in the secondary, and as I've watched him over the last 4 years, I've always thought that was his best chance to get to the NFL. He's a really good athlete. He's extremely quick. He's got excellent ability to turn and run, very shifty with the hips and stuff like that. And I just think that ultimately Cam's best future is going to be where he puts in the most time. And the most time is going to be put in on defense, and that's what makes him appealing, and that's why Kerry Combs had to go out and get him as soon as he took the job.
Last time we were together, we talked about Paris Johnson's calves. Now we get Cam Martinez's hips. He sounded like a real NFL draft.
The hips don't lie.
Well, this is the director of recruiting for Lettermen Row, Dr. Birmingham.
Hips don't lie.
It's going to take you back to Super Bowl Sunday. What I think is kind of fascinating about this discussion, and I wrote about Cam Martinez and the fact that he probably needed to stay on defense last week. I didn't think they would really even talk about the possibility of him playing offense. Now, some of this might be that the biggest need on this roster is at running back. He's not going to play, as you said, a true tailback. But you can get something we didn't see last year that I think is a big part of the offense moving forward are those jet sweeps, the end arounds. and because they didn't feel comfortable that they had an H.
Yeah.
And you're talking about Mookie Cooper. He's not the only one.
Mookie actually played running back for his first 2 years of high school, okay? So he's actually a guy who actually has lined up in the backfield as a I back.
Yeah.
And as a junior, he switched over and played more in the slot in that Rondale Moore, Wandale Robinson type role, because that's where the position's going based on his size and his style. But if you're talking about a guy who could actually help Ohio State in that role, it's probably more Mookie Cooper, because he's actually done it. I mean, his 247 profile when he started listed him as a running back.
Mm-hmm.
So Cameron has always been an athlete. It's about how he can project, but Mookie actually has. I mean, he ran for 1,000 yards as a sophomore, so I mean, it's a different thing when you actually have to line up and take a handoff as opposed to giving one or keeping it on a QB keep.
I just feel like when you brought this up as the path of least resistance, I actually feel like the secondary is in much better shape than people give it credit for. And I might be in the minority on that opinion, and maybe it's obvious to everyone that Cam in the slot,
for next
defending
year.
The slot. Yeah, I know, but that's the hard part about, sometimes I'm just saying his versatility could hurt him early on.
Because it hurt Sam Hubbard, it hurt Cade Stover, for those same reasons.
Rashad Berry,
right.
I mean, if you have, because right now Ohio State would need him most to play on offense. Down the road, I think he's better on defense, and it would be, just to hear Ryan Day talk about it, like, we're going to let him try both. I'm a little hesitant of that's a good idea.
It's the balance between trying to get a guy on the field early because you know he's got a lot of talent and wanting to develop him into somebody who could win you another national championship. And I think it's a delicate balance that they're going to have to walk with this guy. And like you said, it's hurt some guys in the past, and it's kind of hurting Cade Stover right now because you didn't really know where to have him in those first few games, and then all of a sudden you see him at defensive end. I think you need to get a little bit into this before you decide, because if you think you need a playmaker and he can do it, go ahead. But if you think you have enough playmakers where he can be a developmental piece, a true developmental guy, without trying to get him on the field instantly, then you need to give him a defense, because then he can truly develop and not have to worry about learning both.
What Ryan Day said today was that they were going to move forward with a lot of input from Cam, right? And that's important, because everyone who's followed his recruitment or read about it knows that his personal preference is probably to play offense, but maybe that's not his best future. So that's where you have, as a coach and as a developer, you have an obligation to, how do I get this guy to the next level? And I go back to like Terrell Pryor, for example. Okay, way back. Let's get in the Wayback Machine. Terrell Pryor. His high school coaches did him no service by just letting him run the football all the time. You know what I mean? If you were interested in getting him to the next level and preparing him for the next level, you would have taught him to throw the football a little bit better when he was growing up. Instead, what they do is they take players like Cam Martinez, who's obviously not 6'6", 230 pounds like Terrell Pryor was, but they say, you're the guy that can do everything and score for us. I mean, he has a 9-minute highlight tape of just touchdowns from his senior season, okay?
Right.
The kid knows how to get in the end zone. But at some point, and we talked about this with Cameron last summer before he committed, was there a plan to move him and make him play defense to help him prepare for Ohio State? And that was talked about, but it never happened. So, you as a coach, like, how do you balance what's best for the kid and what's best for you winning games? Because obviously your job is to win so you don't get fired.
Yeah. So this has been a great Cameron Martinez day for Ohio State, as we talk about it on Rapid Reaction.
Day.
Brought to you by Byers Auto. What's kind of replaced the sitting and waiting for decisions on the first Wednesday of February for those of us that cover Ohio State is that now you have all the early enrollees that are already here. We get to talk to them. They've had about a month to start going to classes. They had the early taste of off-season workouts with Mickey Marotti. Now they're into the first week of mat drills, and you can already see some of these guys making an impression, fighting for playing time. Mick's rolling them out there on the mat and letting them get their juices flowing already.
Who was the best one today?
Pete Warner wins the mat drills for today. That's straight from Mickey Marotti. Berm was hoping for it was going to be an early enrollee that we were talking about. But, you can see already some of these guys have changed, and they're, some of them had old deer in headlights look. Some of them were, Julian Fleming was talking about how sore he was. That's what's going to happen right now. But all these guys are really impressive athletes, obviously. It was great to talk to them. This first time, their first taste of the camera being on, the mics in their face, dealing with the crush of attention here. I don't know, did anything you learned this morning change either of you guys' opinions about which guy is most ready to help by September?
Paris Johnson looks like any other offensive lineman that would stroll through here. That guy looks very impressive. Jack Miller looks like he's gained a lot of muscle weight. He looked really impressive. You can go down the list of each guy, but I think that the number one thing was really just, we stood next to Paris afterwards. There's a picture of me on Twitter, and I'm just looking up at him. But
he's a huge person.
He looks like what Thayer and those other guys look like that play along the offensive line right now, and he looks like he's ready. Now, if you can get it mentally and then physically when you get the pads on, it's a completely different thing. But just if you look at him right now, the way he's built and the way he's been training, not even with Mickey Marotti for the last 2 or 3 years, he looks like he's ready to take that step.
I always caution, and Berm covers recruiting, and he's going to make the comparisons for people and who can make an instant impact. He knows that better than anybody. And I always try and play the other side and caution that Ohio State doesn't need true freshmen to play. It's not a sign of strength. It's a problem for your program. But if I'm just sitting here, I'm going to probably be guilty of it because, as Spencer just said, when we're standing next to Paris Johnson, we've watched the highlight films, when we've talked to him about his mindset, and then you just see, if he had been standing next to Nicholas Petit-Frere this morning, you wouldn't know which one was in their third year in the program and which one was the true freshman.
I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. Yeah.
That's really interesting to me because I have always been the one to say, hey, Orlando Pace is one of a kind, and that's not going to happen again. The only other time that a freshman did it was Michael Jordan. Well, Paris Johnson's been talking to Michael Jordan about it.
That was more of an emergency situation.
A wild situation.
So, we did our bold predictions for the class of 2020 after the December signing period. And my prediction was that Paris Johnson's the number 1 pick in the NFL draft 3 years from now. So I actually love days like today when the rest of the media, who doesn't really pay as close attention to recruiting, gets an opportunity to meet these kids, because I spent a lot of time in the last year, almost to an extreme degree, talking about how great this group is as far as just who they are, as far as people. And I think it's just awesome that everyone else gets an opportunity now to see that, because it's such a rare thing when you have high school athletes who are at this level, who have their butts kissed for 4 straight years by people, I guess, like me. That it doesn't get to their heads, and they remain true to who they are. And I think it's just awesome to kind of watch that. And I think that even guys who we really haven't had much of a chance to get to know as well, Mookie Cooper for one, who spent his entire senior season on the sideline not playing, and because of that sort of avoided the media stuff.
And he told me spent 4 straight weeks after that decision crying in his car every day after school because he wasn't getting to play football.
So you understand why he's avoiding media and talking about it, but you see him out here today and he's incredibly energetic, joking around, smiling with everyone he's talking to, and he said he was just so excited to be back playing football. And I just think it's a really cool opportunity, because we're not going to talk to most of these kids again until the end of the Big Ten championship game next year, right? So, how do you get to this? How do you get to know them for readers and for fans and listeners? So, that to me is the exciting part.
That's another bold prediction for 2020 from Berm right there, that we will be back in Indianapolis for the 4th straight year.
That ain't a bad one.
Yeah, so that's pretty good. It's a lot better than the one he made a few years ago where it was going to be against Purdue, but that's a different.
You mean the year that Purdue went out and beat Ohio State?
No.
Wow, bro.
Yeah. Wow. That was that year. So Purdue won the de facto Big Ten championship that year.
Oh, okay. I'll take us in a different direction.
Touche.
I'll take us in a different direction. I think there's going to be a fight. Here's my bold prediction. There'll be a fight in the next 3 years over who's going to be a captain on this team. Because if you look down the list of these guys that are just in this building right now, Court Williams is a natural leader. Talking to him, G. Scott could be a natural leader. I talked to him about the fact that Ohio State wide receivers don't really get the recognition nationally, and how that kind of weighed on him in recruiting. He said, I don't care. He said, I want to help the team. That's a sign of leadership.
To piggyback off that, I'm just going to chime in. As I talked to all the receivers today, they kind of talked about their individual personalities. And each one of them to a man said that when they need to focus and when they need to get serious, it's G who's the one that's telling them to do it.
There are so many guys that sat at those tables today that could end up being on that captain's wall here in the league.
Captains shouldn't be fighting each other, just to be clear.
No, but it's impressive how many guys could step up and be leaders on this team.
To me, that's a good barometer to see who will not be a captain. If you're fighting with your teammates, you will probably lose the captaincy.
But you could see, off the top of my head, Paris Johnson's probably going to be a captain. Court Williams, I'd say, is definitely going to be a captain. Today was the first time I've ever had any sort of interaction with Ryan Watts. I thought that he carried himself very impressively.
And there's even guys that aren't even here yet, like Lathan Ransom. We talked to him, and he seemed like he could step up and be a kind of guy that could lead a
Again,
unit.
I don't want to beat a dead horse here or get too hyperbolic, but I've just said it over and over in the last year. Like what Ryan Day said today, and if you haven't watched it, go back to YouTube and watch Ryan Day's press conference. The first thing he talked about was fit. It's culture fit. It is not, these guys are the best of the best on high school football players, but they're looking for the right person. And I know sometimes I write that and it sounds like I'm writing it through scarlet-colored glasses, but it's just a fact. These are a different class of kid than was recruited at Ohio State 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And that's kudos to Urban Meyer for that. Kudos to Ryan Day for continuing it, to Mark Pantoni for going out and finding these kids. I mean, it's really different, and you can tell that as well today as you will ever get a day to find that out. Because again, we're talking about 15% of the roster was out here today, and they're all true freshmen who've been on campus for a month, and none of them seemed overwhelmed by the moment. None of them seemed uncomfortable. And again, it's a really encouraging thing if you're talking about the future of Ohio State. As Ryan Day said, the future is bright.
Kerry Combs part of that now. He had his return press conference, and Corey Dennis had his first. He's never been available to the media in this whole 3-4 year run where he's been on the staff. They both talked, so I wonder what stood out from either one of those guys. Spencer, what would be your number one takeaway from the completed coaching staff?
Well, you guys have both been around it before, but today was my introduction to Kerry Combs.
This was kind of like a laid-back Kerry Combs today.
But he walks in.
Like beach combs.
Yeah, this was.
He walks in carrying the cup of coffee. He yells at Gene Smith in the back of the room. He blew my eardrums out when I was trying to check the audio levels. It's impressive how much energy he carries himself with. I think it's going to be a spark in the room. And then I thought Corey Dennis did a pretty nice job at the podium, and it was his first time, and I think he carried himself pretty well. And we talk about that with the athletes all the time, but it's just the same for the coaches. The coaches have to be comfortable at the podium, and Corey Dennis seemed to ace that test. So I was impressed with both of them, but you can't. It's really hard to talk about Coach Combs at the podium without me bringing up the energy level, because I had never been around it before.
It was basically a year ago today that we got our first taste of Jeff Hafley, and we all left that room. Everyone in the media left that room going, "Holy crap, that guy was different."
Yeah.
He could be a head coach someday.
We knew
that's
then.
what we thought. Yeah.
We knew right then, like, oh, okay, this guy's not going to be here very long.
Right.
Kerry Combs has talked at length about his decision to come back, and I know you're writing something about that, but he got emotional about Ohio State and why he decided to come back, how hard it was for him to leave Mike Vrabel. But more than anything, it's just you see a guy that maybe it's just wishful thinking for Buckeye fans. I don't think he's going to leave here for a while. I think the goal for Kerry Combs is to become a head coach someday, but I really left today thinking that that's not happening anytime in the near future.
It's it's crazy. You and I were talking about this just yesterday. Mark D'Antonio is leaving Michigan State. We've talked, you and I, about Luke Fickell being a fit for that job basically since last October, when this looked like it was already going to happen with D'Antonio. Anyone that wants to believe that decision was just made yesterday, good luck to you. That's not the situation, and Michigan State is really in a lurch there, and that's one reason why I think maybe Luke Fickell will not take that job, even though it's going to be very appealing in terms of the money, the Big Ten prestige, and all that. I know.
So your point is, whenever Luke Fickell leaves Cincinnati,
I was getting. Don't rush me, Berm. I know it's rapid reaction, but I'm going to take my damn time.
Whoa.
If Luke takes it, you're going to have this situation. Now, people were already asking us both about it yesterday.
Certainly.
Kerry Combs, did he take the coordinator job so to become a head coach? I think partly so, but today he said no. And so, is he going to go straight to Cincinnati? Well, he hasn't even got to be the coordinator at Ohio State yet.
Yeah, we're on to Cincinnati. He's not, okay? So let's just leave it at that. And the point is, Ryan Day said he hopes Kerry Combs is going to be here a while. Kerry Combs talked, and again, he almost got a little emotional talking about it. I don't think that this is a guy who's in a hurry to leave here. Not that I thought Jeff Hafley was in a hurry to leave, but you knew as a 40-year-old a coordinator who spent 7 years coaching in the NFL, there was a reason Hafley was here, and it was to get himself to the next level. I don't think that is a imminent thing with Kerry Combs, and maybe if, like I said, if the situation shows up and Cincinnati comes calling 3 years from now when Luke Fickell's taking over at Notre Dame or whatever, then why not? You know what I mean? But I just left it thinking like, this is a guy who really made the decision. He wanted to be here. He said it wasn't like Ohio State had to go get him. He was standing up, waving his hand, saying, I want to be that guy. So
there's only 2 times in his press conference that I noticed he would stop and just like take a second. It was when he said, I love Ohio State, and it was when he was asked if there was like a stipulation that he become the defensive coordinator. He didn't care. I don't think he cared what his title was when he came here. And maybe he did. Maybe that's just lip service. But like, he made it clear, very clear, and he paused every time he said it. I love Ohio State, and that was a very clear message. For him to say that, and then when we were on the field, he said the Titans are moving in the right direction. I had a chance to, in a couple years, put a really big ring on my finger, and I still chose to come to Ohio State. I think that speaks volumes to what he wants to do.
Their defensive coordinator retired about the same time that he was taking this job.
Day.
He could have easily, we don't know what Mike Vrabel's thinking there. He can hire anyone he wants, but Kerry Combs would have certainly been a possibility for him. So he made that choice. He's here. He helped land Cam Martinez. He's going to fight for him now. We broke all of that down for you on Rapid Reaction.
Talk more about Cam Martinez.
Yeah, I'm sure that we will.
Can't wait. Cam Counter.
That's going to be the new one here on Rapid Reaction, brought to you by Byers Auto. Dr. Jeremy Birmingham, Spencer Holbrook. I am Austin Ward. We will be back here. Hey, the next time they let us in the Woody, we'll break it down for you. We'll have you covered at lettermenrow.com.
That'll probably be the first spring practice.
All right, so 1 month from now, look forward. We'll see you right back here. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe below to get the latest videos from Lettermen Row.
We got Letterman Live, we've got the practice report, we got Rapid Reaction. Hey, and we got Buckeye Q with Zach Bourne.
For sure. We got recruiting breakdowns with Berm. We got whatever you need. Ohio State football and Ohio State athletics, we've got you covered here at Lettermen Row.